This video is going to focus on us doing conversions between a metric unit and an imperial unit. The first example I want to do is pretty basic. I'm going to convert 26 miles into kilometers. Now, this table that I've taken a snippet of is from your booklet, and you will always be able to have access to this table on a quiz or a test or an exam. You'll never have to memorize this information. There are two ways to do these conversions. I want to show you both because you should know how to do both. And sometimes on assignment questions, I will actually ask you to show me how to do it both ways. Here we go. Miles to kilometers. Depending on which way you're going to do it, there's two conversions given. First one says 1 mile is the equivalent to 1.609 kilometers. I'm going to take that information, I'm going to write it as a proportion. Well, half a proportion, I guess a ratio. 1 mile is the equivalent to 1.609 kilometers. In the other half, I'm going to write down what I'm given and put the question mark for what I want to find. So 1 mile on the top, equivalent to 1.609 kilometers on the bottom. 26 miles is going to go on the top. And the unknown is going to be how many kilometers is that equal to. What we learned earlier on in the percent section and even in the proportion section, you cross multiply 26 by 1.609, then you divide by the number that's across from the x. So 26 multiplied by the 1.609 is going to give us an answer of 41.834, and the unit I'm looking for, 41.834 kilometers. Now, you should be thinking ahead of me and saying, but I know another way. There's other ways to do that, and you're right. There's another conversion that you can use. On the table, you could also use this one. 1 kilometer is equal to 0.6214 miles. So say I did this. 1 kilometer is the equivalent to 0.6214 miles. So how many kilometers x would go on the top would be the equivalent to 26 miles on the bottom. So you would then take your 26, multiply it by the 1, and then divide by the number across from the x. 26 times 1, of course, is 26. Divide that by 0.6214. You're going to get a calculator answer of 41.841. Chances are you're going to be required to round. Let's just say the question will require you to round the nearest tenths. 41.8 kilometers would be the answer, no matter what way you did it. So if I asked you on a quiz or an assignment to show both methods of a conversion, you would be required to use the two different conversion factors and prove that the answer is the same no matter what method that you use. Let's do an example now that requires us to do a conversion with capacity. So the question I want to solve is this. 53.6 imperial gallons. I want to know what that's equal to in liters. How many liters is that? It's very important that you watch out for the word imperial or US, because a US gallon and an imperial gallon are not the same thing. Go to our table. Let's have a look. So imperial, we have 1 gallon is the equivalent to, let's write it as a fraction, 1 gallon. On the bottom we can put the equivalent, 4.546 liters. Is kind of hard to read. The other half of our fraction, we want to know how many liters, X is on the bottom, is the equivalent to 53.6 imperial gallons. The way that this is set up, gallons on the top, liters on the bottom, what we're going to do is multiply 53.6 by 4.546 and then divide by the number that's across on the X. In this case, it's a 1. So our answer is going to be mathematically 243.6656 liters. There's also another conversion on the table from metric to imperial here. And that says, on the left-hand side of the table, 1 liter is equal to 0.22, this is imperial gallons, imperial gallon, IMP gallon. So how many liters is on the X? P on the top would be the equivalent 53.6 imperial gallons. Now you're going to cross multiply and do 1 times 53.6, which of course is just 1, and then divide by the number across from the X, which is 0.22. So mathematically speaking, 53.6 divided by 0.22 is going to give you an answer of 243.6363 liters. So depending on how you're going to round, you may have a little bit of variety in your answer. If the question asks you to do it in U.S. gallons, just because we can, to show you there's a significant difference, 53.6 U.S. gallons, which are located on the right-hand side of the table, quite a bit different. 1 U.S. gallon is only equal to, so a new fraction, 1 U.S. gallon is equivalent to 3.785 liters. So how many liters would be the match 53.6 U.S. gallons? Cross multiply and divide. 53.6, multiply that by 3.785 divided by 1. You're going to get an answer here for the U.S. gallons to liters of 202.876 liters. So if you were required to have a certain number of liters to get from A to B, and you did the wrong calculation and used the U.S. gallon instead of an imperial gallon, you could run out of fuel. That's precisely what happened with the Mars orbiter a number of years ago. It ran out of fuel because somebody used the wrong conversion, and gazillions of dollars went down the crapper because somebody didn't do a very basic calculation correctly. Let's talk a little something about weights. So masses of things is a better word. A couple of conversions you need to get familiar with. The first one is 1 kilogram is the equivalent to 2.205 pounds. And you want to use it a different way. 1 pound is equal to 453.592 grams. Those are two things that you'll use a lot when you go back and forth between masses. Just an FYI while I have your attention. You'll notice right here, if you ever forget, 1 ton is the equivalent of 1,000 kilograms. In case you also ever forget, 1 metric ton is not equal to 1 short ton. In fact, 1 short ton is 2,000 pounds. 1 metric ton is equal to 1,000 kilograms. You could use that to make a conversion at some point if you had to. Let's do the example. We'll do an example here. If you had 3,600 grams and you want to know how many pounds that was. 3,600 grams. You want to change it into pounds. Abbreviation for pounds quite often is LBS. So take either one of those conversions, say 1 kilogram, 2.205 pounds. So therefore, how many pounds would you have if you had 3,600 grams? So straight away, you would recognize you can't put kilograms on the top on one side and grams on the other side. You got to change one to the other. So I would recommend that you take your 3,600 grams, convert it to kilograms. So grams to kilograms, you're going to divide by 1,000. That's the equivalent of saying 3.6 kilograms. So you had to do a two-stepper to get that one to work. To solve the math, you're going to cross multiply 3.6 times your 2.205, and you're going to get an answer for x. That's going to be 7.938 pounds. If you had chosen to use the other conversion, equally as valid and actually more direct, 3,600 grams, your question, and you're going to use 1 pound, 1 lb is the equivalent to 453.592 grams. So therefore, how many pounds? X would be on the top for 3,600 grams. So 3,600, multiply it by 1, divide by 453. Your X value, your missing pounds, would be 7.9366, etc. And depending on rounding, very likely going to be exactly the same. If you did to the nearest, well, at least close enough that it wouldn't make a huge difference for most applications. Say 7.94 pounds. Same as in the previous one, 7.94 pounds. Bottom line, when you're doing any kind of a metric to imperial conversion or imperial to metric conversion, your first job is going to be to find out which conversion factor to use from your table, and then take that conversion factor and convert it into a 1/2 of a proportion. Put your given information in the other half, fill in your X in the correct spot, cross multiply and divide, and then watch your rounding. So you can do, on this table, I can look at this table and I can see that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. I can do inches to centimeters, I can do feet to meters, I can do yards to meters, I can do gallons to liters, I can do pints to liters, I can do pints to, what else? Pints to liters, I guess, is the main one. I can do a barrel of oil to liters. I can do fluid ounces to milliliters. I can do mass of ounces into grams. All kinds of conversions are possible from this table. You do not have to memorize it, but you do have to know how to use it. So good luck.